All right, what's up, everyone? Welcome back. Walsh and Chavy's wrestling show. We don't have a name for it yet. We'll get there eventually. Kind of the nightcap, kind of not. But here we are, and we've got a great show. We're going to talk about one of each of our favorite pay-per-view, I think. In my opinion, it's my favorite of all time. Definitely one of yours, right, Chavy?
Yeah, when we talked about the all-out recap, and I said when I drunkenly stumbled into how I would message the WWE Access show to make them air Edge and Christian versus the Hardy Boys versus the Dudley Boys for the tag team titles at WrestleMania 17, it pretty much just laid the groundwork for me, saying that that's one of my favorite pay-per-views of all time.
Yeah, absolutely. It's no matter how old you are, no matter how many times you've watched it, it is always worth the rewatch.
Oh, it is, for sure.
And this is going to be the start. Well, I mean, All Out was kind of the start of our show, but this is going to be the start of our new show, basically.
Yeah.
Same thing. We're going to talk wrestling. We're going to start here at WrestleMania 17, and we're going to go in chronological order for the pay-per-views. So we're going to talk about every pay-per-view from now until whenever we feel like stopping doing this, or we come up with another idea. So buckle up, baby, because 2001 was a hell of a year for pay-per-views. And it started with WrestleMania 17.
Yeah, and I think before we go forward with this, everyone has done like a retrospect or a recap. So we're not here reinventing the wheel here. We're just here to do what we do best, and that's talk about wrestling. And Walsh, like he said, he picked a great year in 2001 to do it. We don't want to do it now. Like, I think you just do like the 2020 product. Like I said, I haven't sat down and watched for a long time, and I just think that'd be too negative, and that's not what we're about here. I've been jaded by the WWE so many times that I just stopped watching, and we're going to be a little bit more positive in this podcast and reminisce about the good old days.
Oh yeah, the good old days, WWF. Hopefully we don't get sued by the World Wildlife Foundation, and we can, we don't have to bleep that out, or as the WWE would say, get the F out when they change.
Love that campaign.
Great campaign. Campaign.
Because they would be so taboo about saying the F word, and it was just cool. Like, they had an alternative to getting to say fuck on TV, basically, and like on their T-shirts.
Yes. I'll never forget Stone Cold's one shirt. It said like "Ruck Fools" or something like that.
Yeah. And then John Cena had like a knockoff version of that afterwards, and so it was like that. We're gonna make John Cena cool by letting him almost say the F word, an implied F word.
And then they went PG, and the product went to shit. Pretty much.
Yeah, so it's like, even if you hear like a bitch or a piss now, it's like kind of like it was hearing like an F word or like an asshole back in the good old days.
Yeah, I think the craziest thing we've heard over, I would say, probably the last, I would say 10 years, honestly, at least 10 years. It was right after, I honestly am not going to remember the dates at all, but Braun Strowman put someone through the old Titantron on one of the editions of Raw, and Corey Graves said, "Holy shit!"
Oh yeah, I do remember that.
Out, and I think people were like going wild. They were like, "Oh my god, he actually said shit on national TV."
Yeah,
so that was the craziest we got. Probably the craziest we will get in this PG era.
Oh yeah, and we're not going to count like out of character cursing, because you will hear someone say "fuck" if they land bad. I believe. Brock Lesnar is notorious for that. Randy Orton also notorious for just screaming out "fuck" if he botches something or just lands wrong. So we won't count those.
No, not at all. But let's get into our show here. WrestleMania 17, my favorite WrestleMania of all time. We both just went and rewatched it. Chavy actually went and did some more research. He actually watched the Raw before WrestleMania. And Chavy, you found out something interesting that maybe a lot of people might have forgotten about.
Yeah. It was definitely interesting. I'm just going back and thinking I'm going to watch a typical go-home show for a pay-per-view. Because that's the model they do now, and that's what, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I'm sure it's how they did back in the day. And it started with Jeff Jarrett on simulcast. Well, not really simulcast, but Vince McMahon basically had picture-in-picture going on in his office while he's got Trish Stratus just like massaging him all over. And he basically announces, "Hey, fuck you guys. I got Nitro now, and I am going to bury it at every turn during this show," which I told you before we went on air. It's absolutely wild to have the go-home show to get people to buy your pay-per-view is just shitting on the company you just bought out after fighting with them that would have been 7 years by that point, like 6-7 years. I mean, crazy that's, but it's so Vince McMahon. I mean, that's what he does best. Dude's a weird cat. So I mean, it doesn't really surprise me, but I mean, it's interesting because I forgot that happened right before WrestleMania.
Yeah, and that is one of the crazier things that happens too in this whole build-up in 2001 when Shane pops up on Nitro, and the name on the contract does read McMahon, but it reads Shane McMahon. Great promo.
Yeah, it's like the most soap opera thing of all time. Like sitcom. Like, I love it though. Like I should say that I love that. Like
it was so good. It was so bad that it was incredible. Like
because that wouldn't pass through any legal like notoriety. That would just be, it'd be like, oh, it's supposed to say Vince, but it clearly says Shane. We're gonna null and void this, and we're gonna give WCW back to Ted Turner.
Exactly. It's like, hey, Dad, I kind of fucked up the deal here. We actually don't own WCW anymore. That's how they had that set up. But yeah, Shane McMahon pops up. He now owns WCW a week before WrestleMania, and we get set up for one of the matches on the card. Which we'll talk about a little bit later on, but we'll start at the beginning. Right at the beginning, we'll pop right into it. So I got to be honest, in the rewatch, I just turned it on because I remember the first match really not caring about it too much.
Yeah.
I forget, it was a very short match. It was X Factor at the time, Just Incredible and X-Pac with Albert, aka Lord Tensai, going up against Grandmaster Sexay.
R.I.P.
Steve Blackman in a tag team match to kick off the show.
Yeah, and that was on Heat. So it's like that's why it was such a short match. Like Heat was always notorious for just letting you see the pay-per-view set and like a 2-minute match and then just being like, fuck you, buy the pay-per-view if you want to see more.
Right. And it was like they could have done a lot better for a pre-show for a WrestleMania. Like nowadays you'll actually see they usually have the Battle Royals on, which honestly they probably should have had the Battle Royal that took place in on WrestleMania during the pre-show. Probably would have gotten a little more buys out of that one.
Yeah, I definitely, if I had the money to buy it back then, I didn't have to watch it at my uncle's like 2 weeks later, I would have definitely have bought it then because hook, line, sinker when I watched the Gimmick Battle Royal, which we're going to talk about later. But no, it's crazy to see like how that's the match they're selling on the pre-show to buy WrestleMania because
casual fans, you don't know, you maybe know X-Pac out of the 5 guys that were technically involved in that match. X-Pac's probably the only one you would really know.
Yeah, and that's on MTV. So it's like if you're like you said, a casual fan or even not a fan, you just scroll past that and you're like, that's the best they have to offer. Like I imagine if I'm them, I'm saying the card is probably shit. If this is like their way to get me to buy it is to show these 4 guys.
Yeah, which is crazy that is the match that we're talking about to start the payper-view because of how good the pay-per-view was.
Yeah,
that was Sunday Night Heat, which RIP, great. They used to have some good matches on there.
Yeah, and like I said, it was always a great way for me who didn't have money to buy a pay-per-view at 10 years old to get a peek at the set.
Yeah, that I missed that, honestly. The different sets for every pay-per-view, like now they only do it for WrestleMania.
Yeah, which I will say the new WrestleMania, it wasn't this year because obviously this year's was at the PC. But the year before that, when Kofi Mania was running wild, I did like just the big screen. Yeah, it kind of reminded me of Wrestle Kingdom with New Japan, and I loved it. I just love it. It's such a simple concept. I mean, like you said, we'd love to go back to the old ones, especially the one pay-per-view we'll talk about next with Backlash with the hooks flying back and forth.
That was awesome.
It was, and it's like if you're not gonna do that, the big screen is probably the next best thing because it's so simple and it works.
Yes, I agree. And I'm sorry, what was the X Factor? Which I still can't get over. That was a team. Like X-Pac was always DX and then X-Pac and Kane. They're like, when you think of him, you don't think, oh yeah, that's right. He used to team with Just Incredible, who was maybe in the WWE for like a year and a half, if that.
Yeah, he was a big ECW guy. Got over there. I think he was like one of the last champions. He fought in like the last main event. I shouldn't say fought. He wrestled. I guess it's not a fight. He wrestled in like the main event of the last WCW pay-per-view, and I think he won the title. I could be wrong, but I think he wrestled a ladder match against Steve Corino. That's just me flexing the little old school muscle.
Chavy dropping
Branders. Maybe I could also be. I could just be completely fucking wrong too. I don't know, but no, yeah, X-Pac. The only thing I really remember about X Factor was they had a catchy theme song because when I used to play as X-Pac in SmackDown, Just Bring It, I just remember hearing, and you'll be dealing with the X Factor. And like however,
always had a great theme song. No matter where he's been, his theme song has always been incredible.
Yeah, shout out Run DMC for doing his D-Generation X one. That was really cool. I loved it.
So let's get into the main card now. We kick off the pay-per-view with a singles match for the at the time WWF Intercontinental Championship, as we have the Mr. Y2J Chris Jericho,
the demo god,
William Regal.
I was a little surprised by that match, like just and not from like the outcome or like the fact that it was put together, because on paper it's a great match.
Yeah,
absolutely. It's just, I completely, again, it goes back to us being kind of lapsed fans here. I forgot Commissioner Regal was a thing.
Oh, and
when I did the rewatch of Raw before, like it was just so weird to see him play like that commissioner role and just like make a match however he wanted to. So he almost, and I believe in the Raw before Mania, they had Chris Jericho dress up as Doink the Clown, and they had a Doink the Clown just randomly sitting in the crowd. And I don't know if that was Jericho or if that was just like another guy dressed like him, and they already had Jericho planned to be Doink. But impeccable. That's this incredible. What's the word I'm looking for? Coincidence. Yeah, if that's the case. But so they had Jericho come in as Doink the Clown and hit Regal on the walls of Jericho and tap him out. And the match, I mean, I liked it. You know, I think back then it wasn't. It's a great way to start off a pay-per-view, and I think you can't really compare like. And that's why I don't want to rate the match, because we've seen better openers currently, but I just think the whole product was different. It wasn't as much about just straight work rate like it kind of is now. A little bit more story behind it and all that. So, I mean, it was a good match. I liked it.
Yeah, and honestly, the build, like as much as it was a serious match, like the build had a lot of comedy stuff, but I feel like with Chris Jericho, like he can do comedy and it's still like you still can take it seriously when he's like whoever he's with. Like he can be a funny guy, but it's also like, oh shit, like, you know, this is actually going to be a decent match. This isn't just going to be some joke of a match. No. And William Regal is one of the all-time greats.
Yeah.
Wrestler.
One of the greater technical wrestlers of the Attitude Era, you know, just and a guy that, I mean, I don't want to make it sound like I was shitting on the commissioner role. It's just something I forgot about, but it was definitely a lot better than what he had before that in the WWF. He was, I believe, the real man's man, which was horrible. That was just one of those gimmicks where it's like, okay, so he's a construction worker who can really wrestle. Like, why is he still working construction if he can wrestle? And the fact that a lot of construction workers rip darts constantly. I mean, how can he, you know, wrestle a 25, 30-minute match without, you know, gasping for air because his lungs are tar?
Yeah, you got to give William Regal credit. Like, he's been around for so long, and he's killing his role now as the GM of NXT. He's been doing that for a little while, but he's been one of those guys that's been around, and he's always made it work with what he does. Like, even if it was bad, like, you still respected his in-ring ability. And I just remember him teaming with Tajiri for a while too.
Yeah, that was fun back in the day. I love Tajiri.
The miss to the face, that'll get you every time.
Oh yeah, and I loved that. So every time I saw that afterwards when I'd watch wrestling, I didn't know that was like a staple of Japanese wrestling. I just thought it was Tajiri's thing. So I would see like the Great Muta do it. I would see Bushi from New Japan do it. So I was like, holy shit, like they're copying him. But then I realized, oh no, this is something that's been like going on in Japan for years and years. And so that was pretty cool to find out.
Yeah, absolutely. And Chris Jericho going in as champion, picked up the win, held on to his belt. Only a 7-minute match, which I don't hate that.
No,
you know, the build, like I said, was actually interesting to the match. You figured like you wanted to kind of tune in to see what would happen.
Yeah.
And it was good to keep Jericho on the kind of hot streak that he was on.
Yeah, because
even better as we'll get later in the year here.
That's exactly what I was getting ready to say. 2001 was a great year for Chris Jericho, and it started off on a very high note with him beating William Regal for the Intercontinental title. And I just kind of want to touch on it before we move on to the next match.
Yeah.
When you said, Chris Jericho can kind of make that comedy work, but you can also take him seriously. I mean, it's just look at what we just talked about last week, where he wrestled the guy on my shirt here, Orange Cassidy, in a Mimosa Mayhem, played up the bad guy role super well, but was also really funny about it. And it got the match over, and it was still a hilarious match, but still, you respect him. Like you weren't too out of it. You weren't just like, okay, this is too stupid for me. Like I'm still interested and invested in the match.
Yeah, it wasn't like, oh my God, really? Chris Jericho stooping down to this level because he can't get anything else going for him. It's like, wow, I'm now interested even more in Orange Cassidy because him and Chris Jericho are working very well together, and I'm interested to see how this ends.
Yeah.
And speaking of that, before we do move on, did you watch Dynamite Wednesday? The all-out one?
I had golf that night, but I did make sure to keep up with the interesting parts. Oh, sorry. I don't even have that's a beer burp, and I'm not even drinking beer tonight. I'm just drinking water. But no, I did keep up with the big parts of it, and I loved Rusev debuting as Miro, the best man.
Mm-hmm.
And what else did we get? We got Omega playing his stake that he's the better wrestler and was carrying Hangman.
Yep.
What else was it? Am I missing anything?
No, you pretty much covered it all. I was just going to touch on the opening to it was Jericho and MJF driving simultaneously.
Loved it.
Getting out of the car, talking to each other, and going back and forth, acting like they're best friends. And then they go to the double shot of the camera as they're both walking away, and they're like, "Man, I hate that guy."
Oh yeah, I loved it, and that's why when I went back to watch wrestling, I know I'm gonna go back to the well a lot about the Raw before Mania, but when we got stuff like that, Jericho and MJF, they reminded me of old school WWF.
Yes.
They actually treated it like a show and not just like a social media event, like a hashtag, and that was just really cool to see. It's a callback, not exactly like a ripoff, but just a callback to just how absurd and kind of funny wrestling is at its core.
Yeah, and I'm all in on them too feuding at some point down the line because that would be electric.
Yeah, now you can't have Jericho work as a good guy, right? It's just two bad guys that hate each other, and that's what you gotta do. And
it works. It'll work because they're two of the best in the business right now.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
But getting away from AEW back to WrestleMania 17, we had a kind of not really thrown together, but kind of thrown together 6-man tag match with one of the teams that, as a kid, I just remember absolutely hating them. As we had Taz in the APA, Bradshaw and Farouk, with Jacqueline. Don't want to forget her. They took on Right to Censor, which was Paul Buchanan, The Godfather, and Val Venus, with the manager of Steven Richards. And they also had, what's her name? Ivory.
Yep, Ivory was a manager.
Well, and yeah, I remember being, how old was I in 2001? 6? Yeah, 5-6-year-old me. Just discovering boobies after watching wrestling.
Yeah. Shout out Trish Stratus.
Yeah, shout out Trish Stratus. Thank you. And I just remember when they first started, it was the worst thing. Their theme song was just the horn and the siren, and it was just super annoying. Couldn't stand anything about it. Probably, there was no point to them other than they just wanted to. They were trying to make WWE PG before WWE actually went PG.
Yeah, I like how when they shifted to PG, they should have just had Linda McMahon and a bunch of the people behind that decision just come out as the Right to Censor. Just put that blaring horn. It would have been awesome. I would have loved it. I would probably stuck with the product if that would have happened.
Would have been a great callback.
Oh yeah, and that's the best thing in wrestling if you see a nice callback.
And the worst part about it was they made it so non-believable with Right to Censor with the people they put in the group. At first with who was the first dude?
What's it? Are you talking about Stevie Richards?
Yeah, they made him. He was a joke character.
Yeah,
he had nothing going for him, so I get why they did it with him. He made it almost. He almost made sense, but then to go and add the Godfather, who had the hoe train,
and then you call him the Good Father.
Yeah, and then have Val Venus, who literally was a porn star as a wrestler. That is what he was. That was so non-believable to me.
No, it's I did think it was funny though. I think probably given the climate back then, it was more of I'm sure there were porn stars converting and just like, going full on like religion and denouncing it. And I think that's what they were going for, it's topical, but it's also like kind of unbelievable to us.
Yeah.
So I get that, but like a pimp just all of a sudden seeing God, and no, a pimp's gonna stay a pimp. Like he's making too good of money for just having girls get pipe laid on him. Like he's not gonna give that up because he wants to just censor everything now.
Yeah. So very non-believable, and thankfully we had Taz and the APA, which the APA, great tag team. Always just drinking beer and playing cards, security, and Taz. I feel bad for Taz almost because he didn't really have a solid run with WWE.
No.
Like people always forget, I think, that he came in as a wrestler. They just always remember him as the commentator.
Right. And he beat Kurt Angle in his first match for WWF back at the Royal Rumble.
Yeah, and they built that up like it was a big thing. Like, his debut, and like he got a great pop at MSG.
Yeah.
And they just kind of all went downhill after that.
Yeah, which, I mean, if you're a hardcore fan, you knew in ECW the guy could tear down the house on any given night. He was given the opportunity time in and time out and was able to just put on a classic, like without even really flinching, breaking a sweat. One of the best moments, I think, was him slamming Bam Bam Bigelow through that part of the ring that just collapsed, and they just continue the whole show with just a hole in the ring, and they just like tape it off. They're like, that's how extreme we are. But yeah, he was one of those guys where it was like he did kind of get dealt a bad hand, but I think it did come down to injury, so I guess I get it.
Yeah.
But like you said, it sucks that most people know Taz as a commentator as opposed to a wrestler, because it's like if you go back and watch his matches, like I said, he was a fucking tank. And one thing I did want to touch on for this match, so the Raw before Mania, they had Stevie Richards wrestle Taz in a lumberjack match where it was everyone that was going to be in the match at Mania, the Right to Censor and the APA were ringside for this. And it went like 2 minutes. Then the lumberjacks weren't even really needed. They just started beating the shit out of each other for just while the match is going on, completely defeating the purpose of a lumberjack match.
Yeah, they're supposed to be there to throw the guys back into the ring when they go to the outside, not beat up each other. But hey, That's what happens when you got two teams that just absolutely hate each other.
Yeah, I mean, that was probably something that didn't have to be on the card. It really didn't serve a purpose other than to let's create chaos before this match that really no one's going to care about. Yeah,
that should have been another pre-show match. Like this was a 12-match card.
Yeah,
one Sunday Night Heat one. They could have had 2 Sunday Night Heat matches, and that could have been the other one.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it sucks to say about Taz, but they didn't really make it interesting. Like I don't know. That's just not a match that I'm looking forward to. That's a piss break match for me, if I'm being honest.
Agreed. The next match, though, this is one of the, I think, underrated matches on the card. We have the Hardcore Championship being defended in a triple threat match between Kane, Raven, and The Big Show. And I don't know why, but something in my head, every time I think of WrestleMania 17, I always think that this match kicks off the show, and it's not. It's like the 4th match in. Like when I think WrestleMania 17, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember, the triple threat hardcore match kicking off the show. That's clearly not what happened.
I mean, it would be a great thing though if it did. I mean, that's just like such an absurd match, like a hardcore match, but with Kane, Raven, and The Big Show would be like. I mean, if I was going to tune in and be like, okay, the pay per view, that could start the pay per view on a high note. Not saying that Regal and Jericho didn't, but
right.
Man, that really could set the tone for the crowd the entire night. But I guess you put it there to kind of get the heat back with the crowd, get them a little bit more excited, because that, like we said, that Right to Censor versus Taz match isn't really lighting the world on fire or getting the crowd like super hot. So I get why they put it where they put it.
Yeah, I agree. Great match though for being a hardcore match with 2 giants and Raven, who basically had no business. When you look at the size of these guys, he has no business being in there, but he holds his own. Definitely one of the best hardcore guys. His time in ECW.
It was great.
I always find it hilarious him coming to the ring with the shopping cart, just filled with just stuff to beat the shit out of everyone with.
Yeah, it was. That reminds me. I used to play the game after Just Bring It for SmackDown was Shut Your Mouth, and they had an entrance that was. I don't think it was specific for him, but you could do a Jackass entrance where he would ride in a shopping cart down the ramp, and he would just hit the ring and just flip over the ring. So he was Jackass while Jackass was hot. Like, he was putting Jackass on the map as a mainstream product while in the WWF.
Yeah, and he had a good run. You know, he was mainly in the hardcore picture for the entire time that he was with WWE. But yeah, I enjoyed this match. Like I said, they kind of went all over the place too. In the back, out on the stage. I'll never forget the golf cart being used with the ref hanging on the side or the back.
almost killed the entire pay-per-view. I think if you're a hardcore fan or just like, you know, look a little bit more into it, you'll know that. But for the casual fan, that almost killed the pay-per-view. I think they ran over some wires or ran into some place they shouldn't have.
Yep.
And they almost fucked up the entire feed for the rest of the night, which would have been a dumpster fire of a thing to happen. And I think it just goes back to, I think at that point, Vince would have to sell WWF and WCW to Ted Turner.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That would have been a nightmare.
That would have been.
I can't imagine that happening. Like, what do you do? Like, hey, by the way, we're no longer live. Like, you guys fucked us right now.
I have no doubt that Vince McMahon would have picked up one of those stop signs that Raven had and just clobbered him in the head and just solidified having to pay him millions of dollars in like 2015 for CT, because it's like you're directly responsible for that. You hit him with that stop sign about 100 times over his head. Yep. And when we asked him who he was afterwards, he thought he was Kane. That's how bad it was.
And Kane did pick up the win. I think Raven was the champion going in. I missed the hardcore title though.
I just miss hardcore wrestling.
Yeah.
They still have it, which I don't know how much you get into like the indies, but like when there was like a need for that, they had like CZW, which is like Combat Zone Wrestling, which was ECW, basically for like hardcore, even more hardcore fans. And these guys would do this thing called Cage of Death, and they just put all this shit in the ring. There was one where this guy was just he got tied to the ropes, and they used a weed whacker on his chest. And he got paid like $200 to get scarred all over his chest with a fucking weed whacker. We don't want that kind of extreme back. We want, Raven getting thrown through some glass, stop signs being used over the head.
Just anything better than, like, they tried with the 24/7 title.
Yeah.
And failed miserably.
It's a comedy title, which I guess the hardcore kind of was, because you had Crash Holly going through like a ball pit to avoid. Yeah, R.I.P. Crash Holly, which he also, circling back to Chris Jericho and William Regal, I'm almost glad you said that. So the Raw before Mania, William Regal comes out and says, I have handpicked my opponent to wrestle tonight, and it's going to be a Holly. From the prestigious Holly wrestling family. I'm going to have someone wrestle. So Crash Holly and Molly Holly come out to answer the challenge, and he just grabs Molly Holly and starts beating the shit out of her and make her tap out at the Regal stretch. And then Crash Holly's like, I'm going to save you, Molly. And he gets tapped out in like 2 seconds as well. Just RIP to, Crash Holly.
He was probably, I would say he was probably the best hardcore champion. The amount of funny things that he did with that title, I remember him getting like hiding in a like play set and like what looked almost like a Chuck E. Cheese type thing. And he had some good hardcore matches. The WrestleMania the year before this, WrestleMania 2000, they had that like hardcore championship gauntlet match. There was like 15 guys or whoever in it, and whoever had the last pinfall won. I don't know if you remember that one at all.
I do remember that, and that's something. I mean, I'm glad we got the match we did with Kane, Big Show, and Raven. But I mean, that's something they should just bring back like once a year. Just be like, hey, we're gonna have like a hardcore gauntlet here. And
hardcore battle royal. You just go wherever the hell you want, and the winner, whoever gets the last pinfall, wins something.
Whoever has a pulse at the end of like 15 minutes wins the title.
Yeah.
No, those were the good old days. I miss that. Like you said, 24/7 title is more of like just a straight up comedy at this point. But we know hardcore wrestling can be done right still, because one of my favorite matches of recent memory was All Out 2019 with Joey Janela versus Jimmy Havoc versus Darby Allin. That was just a car crash match. That's how it was back in the day. It was a car crash match for like 10, 15 minutes, and they just left it all out there.
And we're not saying, we want to see these guys die. That's not what we're going for. We just want to see a hardcore match that is like good. We don't want to see like oh yeah, this guy got hit with a kendo stick once. I want to see somebody fall off the top of a ladder. I want to see someone go through 6 tables at once. Give me some thumbtacks, because why not? Maybe a flaming barbed wire 2x4.
Which
is that too much to ask for?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think a lot of people realize just how safe those spots were, because like if you take a barbed wire bat to the stomach or like the back, like your back, people are like, "Oh my god, it's a baseball bat! It's gotta hurt." It's like it's wrapped in so much wire that it's not even really. It's just like it hit the flat surface. I mean, it still hurts. Don't get me wrong. I'm not gonna say that they don't feel anything, but it's definitely a lot safer than I think people would expect when they hear that.
Yeah, I agree. And like we said, Kane picked up the win, so he was hardcore champion. I don't even remember how long he was hardcore champion for.
Probably like 2 minutes. I bet he lost it like that.
Yeah.
After the next match. No, it's funny. I bet people assume when you bring up a barbed wire baseball bat, they just assume you're gonna blow someone's head out like Negan did with what's his face from Glenn from Walking Dead. That's a spoiler there. I don't know if anyone's got that far yet. That's probably that's like 10 years ago, but spoiler just in case.
Spoiler if you haven't watched one of the most popular shows.
Is it still popular though? I've saw they're getting a spinoff.
I watched the first ever episode.
Okay.
I just couldn't get into it. It's not my type of TV show. Like, I'm not a big zombie sci-fi type person.
No.
I've never watched. Like, I watched the first episode, was like, oh, okay. I don't actually want to watch the second one.
No, I mean, I was like under the impression that you can't just stretch out a zombie apocalypse across however many seasons they have now. Yeah. I was always like, you're gonna run out of ideas, which is kind of where they were going, I think, recently, where they brought in Negan, like they're just starting to fight each other in this apocalypse. Yeah, I like my zombie content to be an hour and a half to 2 hours, end of story. I can't watch thousands of hours of
like World War Z.
Yeah, World War Z, Shaun of the Dead, Dawn of the Dead, all of those. Perfect, because they fit that 90 to 120 minute window where it's like, okay, we're wrap it up by like the 115th minute. Let's see where this like finality to it, and then credits.
Right. So next up we have RIP again. A lot of dead guys being brought up on this episode. Eddie Guerrero, one of the best of all time, against Test, RIP, for the European Championship. And RIP the European Championship.
Yeah,
that match has 2 dead guys and a dead title.
3 of the what's that? 1, 2, 3, 4 things brought up. 3 of the 4 things brought up are all no longer with us.
Yes, sad.
Kind of sad. I look forward to when we retrospect like the year 1987, and we just bring up a whole pay-per-view that's full of dead guys. I mean, I don't look forward to it, but it's going to be just how crazy it is that all these guys just did all this shit to their body and just died at like 40.
Yeah, I remember when Eddie Guerrero died, that was like, I was old enough to realize like, oh, damn, like
that's bad.
Man, like that's crazy. And then you like started like, I was still young, but I was old enough to realize how messed up the wrestling world was at the time.
Oh, yeah. I cried. When I heard the news. Well, I shouldn't say when I heard the news, but when I watched the Raw as Eddie with all the tributes rolling in, cried. I think Rey Mysterio's or Chris Benoit's, which, I mean, I don't know if we can talk about him. Yeah. Both of their tributes kind of, I mean, made me pretty emotional.
Yeah, I agree. And that's the thing. When you, with us, I know, like, we haven't met each other, but from talking to you, we both seem like we were very big into wrestling.
Yeah.
And like we grew up watching these guys, and not like we understood when we were older that, yeah, no, it's not real. But these guys are still human beings. And like, yeah, you would like to see him have been able to live the rest of his life and still be competing and putting on great matches. Because like we said, he's one of the best of all time.
Yeah. I mean, or even just helping out the talent that's here now, because you like go back to Chris Jericho, the opening match of WrestleMania 17. We talked about he's putting over Orange Cassidy now. Anytime he's on commentary, he's putting over the younger talent. Like, and he's always been like that. And I have no doubt Eddie Guerrero would have been the same way had he still been around. You know, we would have seen probably Eddie Guerrero really pass the torch to like John Cena, because I don't think we ever really got to see a proper kind of feud between them before he died. Mm-hmm. I believe he was just getting started with Batista before he passed away. And he would have been the type of guy that would have put both of them over. And, and he still wouldn't have lost any credibility, because we know he can still go in the ring. And he's Eddie Guerrero. He was so popular at the time that, you really could have done with that, whatever with him. And he still would have been selling out merch, shutting it down every night. Like, just, yeah, it sucks. I mean, that's no other way to say it.
Yeah, I would say from my lifetime, our lifetime, he's probably, which taking out what Chris Benoit did,
right?
Them two are two of the biggest stars that we lost way too early.
And it was 2 years apart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was not and they were best friends, which is, even crazier.
Yeah, which if you want to hear more about that and just like the circumstances surrounding both of them, check out Dark Side of the Ring from Vice. Great fucking show. And I believe all the episodes are on Hulu now from the second season, so you can watch that Benoit and Guerrero two-parter. Absolutely heartbreaking how they found Eddie Guerrero. Yes,
absolutely heartbreaking. Even the Benoit one, and I feel so bad for his son. Yeah, I'm glad he's gonna. I really do hope he uses the name. And I don't want I'm not. You can't condone what Chris Benoit did. We all understand that it was a horrible, horrible thing. But at the same time, it's like his son should not have to deal with that. Like his son should be able to use the Benoit name.
Yeah, it wasn't him, and he's not using it to where he's like, "Hey, look at me, I'm the son of a killer," or like trying to draw heat with it, like as a bad guy would. It's just him being introduced as, I believe his name is David, right, or Daniel. Or Daniel's the one that got murdered.
Yes,
what's it?
I think it is David.
Okay, David. So he's going David Benoit. Like it's just him being introduced. That's just his name. It's no different than who's someone that uses their real name right now. Still, Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar is obviously Brock Lesnar. It's just him getting introduced. There's no meaning behind it like there was back in WCW when they had Bill DeMott wrestling as Huge Erection. It's not like he's using that as a pun. It's just it's his name.
It's who he is.
Yeah, and I hope he can use it. And yeah, I mean, it sucks. I mean, we still see people talk about Benoit. I mean, you can't condone what he did, but I mean, he can respect his talent in the ring.
Right. Take away everything outside the ring, which I know a lot of people will never do that because it's the world we live in where people can't separate, what he did to his in-ring ability, which sucks, but I understand that as well. But yeah, do you think his son ever gets a chance in WWE?
No, I mean, it would be the way he kind of feels towards them, which I guess kind of slight Dark Side of the Ring spoilers. He is not a fan of them at all. And I really don't blame him for how that all went down.
Agreed.
But no, and I've read from a lot of sites that he's always teased getting into the ring, but hasn't really actually followed through on like getting the proper training and stuff. So, which again, I can't fault him. I can't tell him, hey, this is how you mourn. You're losing part of your family, like your dad and your stepbrother and your stepmom. But I just don't see it happening. It is what it is. It's kind of a sad situation all around. And I don't think you even have to ask people to separate Benoit from what he did. I think you always remember what he did. But you can still watch his matches. Like, I feel like that's kind of a stigma that's going on now since he did that. Like, oh, we can't watch anything. Like, I get it, wipe him away from history. But that doesn't mean like when his match comes on the network, when you're watching a random pay-per-view, you don't have to just fast forward it. You can, more power to you, but don't feel forced to. Like, you can still watch the match. You can still respect that he put on a hell of a match every time he was in the ring. Yeah.
Which we'll get to that match next. We'll go back here. We go off the rails here. If you're just tuning in for the first time, go back, watch the rest of our stuff. We always go off the rails. It's what happens when Walsh and Chavy get together. We're great. Okay. Yeah, I'd almost like to say that we have the best chemistry at Branded Sports, maybe without even ever meeting. It's just our love of wrestling and our love of riffing back and forth. I agree. Maybe Joe and K-Mess because they've known each other longer, and maybe they have it. But I mean, I would agree that we are probably two of the best combo. Yeah, you are the mother to my Ted Mosby. And hey, you live don't die. You live in Ohio, or your parents live in Ohio. You live in the moment. That's right. I live in the moment. One of my favorite gifts, that was like a chirp I said when someone in the group chat just said, "You're from Ohio." I'm like, no, my parents are from Ohio. I live in the moment. Great show. I would be okay reviewing that show too, by the way. Oh man, all the way till season 9. Was it season 9 they ended it? That was a horrible season all around. The whole season took place at a wedding. I fucking hated it. Yeah, it was. We'll have that on another episode because I would love to talk about the ending to that show. But Eddie Guerrero test, This is when the Radicals.
Oh yeah.
Eddie Guerrero came out with Perry Saturn, and then it was Eddie Guerrero, Perry Saturn, Benoit, and Dean Malenko.
Yep, all came over from WCW.
And this was before it was officially announced that Vince McMahon had taken over.
They all kind of left just because they were pissed off they weren't getting used properly. But I think Benoit actually got a world heavyweight title like right before he left.
Yeah. I remember, if I remember correctly, Benoit was involved in like a big stories before he left. But I think that was just more of like, hey, let's all go together type thing.
Yeah, respect.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, Eddie Guerrero test. I remember this match being shorter. Like, not that it was long, but 8 minutes, 30 seconds for the match. Eddie Guerrero picked up the win for the European Championship. Test was the champion going in, which I wouldn't mind seeing them bring that back. I mean, they kind of have with the NXT or the NXT UK brand, but it's not the same because they have separated the entire brand and given them their own championship. But the European title had some interesting feuds with it.
Yeah, it did, and I almost like it'd be cool. Obviously, you can't do it with COVID, but it'd be cool to see NXT champion Walter or NXT UK champion Walters become like a traveling champion.
Yeah, and he like just whoever.
Yeah, circle across the brands. It's a nice link because Walter is definitely someone that needs to get more recognition to the mainstream audience. He did a Survivor Series last year, but goddamn, that guy was such a beast on the indies. His chops are horrifying. They're nightmare fuel.
They really are. So yeah, Eddie Guerrero picks up the win, takes home the European Championship, has a nice little run with that. And then next up we have, which crazy to think that this was not the main event of a WrestleMania because it easily could have been, or honestly any other pay-per-view.
Yeah.
Chris Benoit, who we mentioned previously, and Kurt Angle in their primes of their career. What a match.
Yeah.
From a wrestling standpoint, what a match.
Great match. Fucking loved it. It just sucks. Like you said, it's something that we talked about. It doesn't get much recognition. And that sucks for Angle because Angle did nothing wrong just besides show up to, was it the Silver Dome, the Thunderdome that night, whatever it is? The Houston State. Where did it take place?
Was it Reliant Stadium? No.
Reliant Astrodome. That's what I was getting there eventually, between Silverdome, Thunderdome, all that. I was getting there.
Yeah,
but
Reliant Astrodome in Houston, Texas.
Yeah. It's a good match. I mean, I think I'm sure if you check the forums back then, they had the same mentality. It was going to be a banger of a match. Probably one of the most anticipated matches just from a wrestling standpoint alone, because Angle was known for banger matches, for just being so short in his career. Benoit, worked his way through ECW, WCW, and then to WWF, and was putting on great matches. I mean, it was everything we expected and then some. 5th
longest match on the card, by the way, too. A little over 14 minutes, which they could have a 60-man iron match between them. You would not be bored at all.
No, and you could just throw that in the middle of the card. I would have loved it. Fans probably would have hated it.
Yes, right.
60 minutes, but pay-per-view, I'm watching it. I'm loving it. I would have loved to see that.
Yeah, 14 minutes. Kurt Angle picked up the win over Benoit, which is understandable. Benoit just kind of getting new to the WWE world. But either guy could have won this match, and no difference would have been made to their standing at all.
No. Well, I mean, that was kind of the beauty of the Attitude Era, though. Wasn't it? Like you could see The Rock lose on Raw, and then he would still be The Rock the next week. He'd come out with a chip on his shoulder, but he was still The Rock. Whereas kind of now, people aren't really as patient, or people, if someone gets a loss, I think recently Randy Orton lost to Keith Lee, and they were all pissed off. People were pissed about that. It's he's putting in the best work of his career.
Yeah,
but it's that's wrestling now. These guys can take the hit and raise the stock of another wrestler. That's the way of the land.
And honestly, I don't think it would be that big of an issue if they haven't if WWE didn't make it that way, the way it is now. Randy Orton losing to him, no one would really care about. If it was like it was in the Attitude Era, where you could see The Rock lose. it didn't have to be in a cheap way either. He just
Right.
and then he'd come out the next week and be like, oh yeah, he's still The Rock. Like, cool. Like,
yeah, that's what I don't get. Like they always try to sell it to where it's like, oh, this is like a legitimate contest between two athletes. It's like, well, yeah, athletes can have off nights. Like, why can't you just say, damn, The Rock wasn't feeling it tonight and he got beat by Test. Just
right.
Yeah, that's how it should be. I mean, and then they can just come back the next week, cut a promo, and yeah, it's
you had a start of a feud.
Yeah, a little mini feud to get you to wherever the next pay-per-view was.
Right. And don't get me wrong, I hate seeing the same match over and over again. But at the same time, like, you can have those two guys fight before a pay-per-view and then still have that same match on the pay-per-view. Like, you don't have to save all these matches for the pay-per-view. There's ways that you can go about booking it, I think, at least, and where you can have, like, that's how you would start the feud. Like, oh, hey, The Rock for example, The Rock versus Test. Not that was really ever a thing, but if it was, you have, like you said, The Rock have an off night, Test picks up the win, The Rock comes back out the next week, like, I'm not taking this, blah, 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 whatever. Boom, there you go. They maybe have one more match where Rock picks up the win. Then you have the rubber match on the pay-per-view.
Yeah,
it's not that hard to do.
No, it's not. I mean, I just wonder why we just couldn't get more stuff like that. But yeah, it is what it is. Great match. I mean, I really don't know if there's more we can say. It was what it was. Yeah, and everyone expected it to be that.
And then up next, we calm down a little bit, but at the same time, not really, because China and Ivory for the women's championship. Ivory was the champion, member of Right to Censor.
Yep.
And China, this was her return match from when Ivory injured her, if I remember correctly. Not Ivory injured her, but China got hurt
right
a few months before. And yeah, she reappeared at WrestleMania. It wasn't a surprise appearance. It was, we all knew it was coming.
Right.
Quick match, squash match, pretty much.
Yeah.
China beating Ivory pretty easily, just over 2 minutes, almost 3 minutes.
You couldn't have it any other way, though, because China was always billed as like this. She's just a beast.
Seventh wonder or eighth wonder of the world, whatever it was.
Yeah. Like, you can't have her go wrestle a technical masterpiece with Ivory, and expect people to still believe that she's this monster.
Right.
Like, she had to come out and beat the shit out of her, and it was a way for people to come down, kind of breathe a little after the 15-minute match between Angle and Benoit.
And they also did it to where they didn't make Ivory look terrible, because they made it, the stipulation was that Right to Censor was banned from ringside.
Which, so as the bad guys, like, she gets her. That's a good way to continue the feud too. You can just be like, oh, well, I didn't have my team there, and that's why I lost. Like, the WWF's got it out for me.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
So, there's a little thing called awkward silence, and we just had it. It was a little. It happens.
Little hiccup.
Yeah, because I mean, my mouth was moving like it was almost going to talk, and then you were just going to be the polite man you are. Let me go over, as they say in the biz. And then I was like, oh, wait, I wasn't really going to say anything. You go. And then we got in a nice off.
Hey, we're not always perfect. All right. As much as we like to think, everyone has mess ups.
Yeah.
We learn. We live and we learn. And
we end up on Wrestlemania.
Exactly. So next up, we had the match that pretty sure was created on the Go Home show for WrestleMania. Father versus son. WCW versus WWF. Shane versus Mr. McMahon in a street fight with none other than Mick Foley as a special guest referee. I need your overall thoughts on this one. I want to hear your thoughts first.
Absolutely hilarious that they had Shane McMahon go over, but like we'll get into later down the line, it was to further do the invasion angle. But how awesome would that be for Shane McMahon? Like, every time his dad was a dick to him growing up, like, he just took out in that match. Gave him a coast to coast of the trash can, just sitting on him. And I'm sure he put a little bit extra oomph behind that, just a little bit of a pickup of the knees as you're in the air, and then just really, really extend those legs as you're following through on that. And your dad is just encouraging. He's like, yeah, hit me. It's great for the bit. And you're just like, yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I'm not thinking like that time you grounded me and took away my Sega.
Exactly.
I'm just thinking about how it's going to look on TV.
Remember that time you smacked me in the head for you got a bad grade or something? Yeah. Here's this kendo stick to the chest.
Yeah, take that, asshole. Like, I love my dad to death, but I mean, if you put me in that match with them, I think I would do exactly what Shane did.
Agreed. Yeah. Dad, me and you street fight. Let's go.
Oh yeah. Oh, WCW and WWF are on the line. Even better. Fucking love it.
I just stole the company that you tried buying right from out. Forged my name on the document, even though it was supposed to say Vince.
Oh yeah, I kind of want to do that with my dad. Like maybe the next house they buy, or if they sell this house, I'm gonna be like, yeah, the contract does say Chavy's last name. I'm not gonna say it on here because I don't want my name out in the airwaves. But yeah, it says this Chavy, not Papa Chavy on there. So I actually get all the $500,000 you get from this house, and I'm just gonna go piss it away in the worst possible way ever.
You got to have a street fight to get it back.
Yeah, the only way we'll get it back is if we do a street fight with Mick Foley as the special guest referee.
Yeah, this one, it wasn't a bad match. Like, it was entertaining. There's a lot of different like things going on in like within this feud. So you had obviously Shane McMahon stealing basically WCW from his dad, which not really because WWE owned the entire thing anyway. So it didn't matter.
Spoiler alert for people that thought that actually was real.
But forget about that.
Yeah.
So you had that, and then you had Stephanie McMahon Helmsley at the time, not just Stephanie McMahon, newly married to Triple H, which we can get to that in a different one. The fourth marriage.
Oh, fuck it. Let's just talk about like the basis of the storyline now. They got married while he roofied her.
Yes.
And she somehow stuck with the name. She's just like, okay, yeah, this seems like a good building block for a relationship. I'm just gonna
try and get this annulled or anything like that.
No, that should have been what they had done in kayfabe because she's supposed to get married to Test.
Yeah.
And then he takes her to a 24-hour chapel. Triple H does and just roofies her. It's like, yeah, we're good. No, she's asleep. She's asleep. She's got vertigo. She doesn't like riding around in roofless cars.
Triple H voiceover of that is awesome. I don't know.
Oh yeah.
He's like, yeah, I do.
Yeah, he's just like, yeah. He just moves her lips like the fucking Weekend at Bernie's type shit. That'd be hilarious. That was hilarious.
But she gets involved in that. She's obviously with her dad for now. You know, maybe that changes down the line. You have to stay tuned for our next couple episodes. These next pay-per-views. See what happens. Yeah. Trish Stratus, who was also on Team Mr. McMahon, brings down to the ring, brings down Linda McMahon. So we got the whole family here. The whole family's involved. Linda McMahon is so stressed out and fed up with everything that Vince McMahon does that she's in like this vegetated state, which was super. That was like the weirdest part of this feud to me. Well, not this feud, but like before this. Like Vince McMahon this would not go over well today at all.
No, Vince is just like laying pipe on Trish Stratus, and it puts Linda in like a vegetative state where she almost feels like she's in like an abusive relationship. Would not fly today. Absolutely 1000% not.
This would not be something that people would watch every week. They would try and cancel WWE immediately. But the biggest thing that comes out of this is Trish Stratus, who's Stephanie and Trish are not getting along. Steph is happy with her dad, but is pissed at the same time because he's banging Trish.
Because like in a way, he's almost banging her because she's so young.
Right.
Compared to Steph.
Yeah. I think I would probably be pissed off too a little bit. So Trish brings down Linda. Trish kind of turns a little bit here.
Yep.
And her and Stephanie go at it. They fight to the back. Mick Foley, Mankind, Dude Love, Cactus Jack, going by Mick Foley here.
Yep.
Chases them off, so they go to the back. And Vince McMahon wheels into the ring Linda McMahon. Picks her up in the corner. You just roll just picks her up out of the wheelchair. No regard for human life here.
No.
Picks her up out of the wheelchair, throws her into the ring, puts a steel chair in the corner, has her sit there, and like makes her watch as he's just beating the shit out of Shane with a trash can. And he goes to hit Shane over the head as Shane's like on his knees, and Shane's face is just like,
yeah, he's just out of it.
You hear the crowd react as Linda McMahon all of a sudden is back to normal, stands up, kicks Vince in the balls, and sets up Shane for the coast to coast that you had previously mentioned earlier.
Now, do you think, like, I have to think that she just to get that sudden empowerment that Linda McMahon did to get up and fuck with Vince, I have to think that she heard Katy Perry's roar in her head, and she just got up and said, yeah, you know what? I can do this. I don't need him.
Well, maybe I get where you're going with the Katy Perry, but a little early for that time frame. So I'm trying to think of what was like a very popular women empowerment song back then.
It's Rain and Men by the Weather Girls, maybe?
Maybe Girls Just Want to Have Fun.
Oh, even better. I like this. We're just assuming that she just has music taste stuck in the 80s. No, it's so funny too, like to go back to Trish Stratus, because that Raw before Mania, she's just tongue fucking Vince. It's like how much of vegetative state Linda McMahon is like kayfabe and how much of it's real. Like that's got to be 60-40 split, because I'm sure watching your husband basically get jerked off on television by Trish Stratus and being fed strawberries by her and seductively is not good for the self-esteem.
Yeah, props to Linda McMahon. The amount of shit that I can only imagine what we've seen her go through.
Yeah,
like the amount of stuff that we probably have no idea about. And she's still around. She's doing her thing. Has never let it affect her at all. She's like, isn't she on the Senate or something like that?
She's part of the cabinet, I think, or she was.
Yeah, she was involved in politics. So good for her.
Yeah, I mean,
part owner, sure, in WWE still, and then still has her own thing going. So good for her.
Yeah, it's the McMahons are some crazy, and I mean that in the best possible way, some crazy motherfuckers.
Yes. They will do anything for content. You got to respect it.
I think the message we need to send to the top of the branded sports food chain, from CEO Joe down to the lowest ranking member here, which is probably Stevie Stats. Do anything for content. Don't have any.
It's been like I knew that's where you were going with that too. I knew exactly what you were gonna say.
Yeah, that's how you do it. That's how you do it. I mean, he's got to take notes on how to solidly chirp people. But yeah, no, you just go back.
Never see end. Chavy versus Stevie Stats. So you guys are battling. We've had a couple cage matches. We've had some hardcore matches. I think it's inevitable that you two meet in Hell in a Cell at WrestleMania.
Yeah, and I have no problem going through the top of the cell for content. I mean, I won't be able to walk. I'll use a walker with tennis balls on it by 45, but as long as the paycheck's cleared, I'm good. I'll retire to Boca Raton.
Yeah, another good match. Got the people, back on their feet, going again. And Shane McMahon, as we said, with the help of Linda and Mick Foley. Mick Foley, because Vince McMahon takes a chair shot to Mick Foley on the outside of the ring because Mick stopped him from basically beating the shit out of Linda. And then, Shane McMahon picks up the win, goes to coast, which very impressive. I don't care. Like, Shane McMahon is not a full-time wrestler. And some of the stuff that he was able to pull off, and even to this day, still pulls off, incredible. Like, being able to jump from one side of the ring to the other, not many people can do that.
No, like, that's Rob Van Dam and, a few other people. Yeah. At that time, at least. It wasn't very popular, but, I mean, him and Rob Van Dam popularized it. And 2001, only getting started with Shane McMahon. When we're talking about WrestleMania 17, we got some banger matches coming up that he's done and some banger bumps he's taken.
Oh, yes. I cannot wait.
Which I believe if I believe I'm remembering this right, we will have the next pay-per-view. Well, King of the Ring will be up after Backlash or Judgment Day, but I think Backlash 01, did he also take a big bump in that match, or was that Backlash 2000? You know what I'm talking about, where he
Steve Blackman, right?
It was either that one or he wrestled Test. I think Steve Blackman was SummerSlam 2000, where he climbed the Titantron to get away from him, and he hit him with a kendo stick, and he just fell for some reason. Like when you get hit in the back with a kendo stick, you just involuntarily lose control of your body and just let go of the railing.
Right, makes sense.
Yeah, it makes total sense. But yeah, if that's coming up, awesome. If not, we got King of the Ring. We talk about matches.
We'll get to it. Stay tuned. This isn't just a one and done.
No,
we had our all out review, and we're the people loved it. Yep. They wanted more, so we're doing our duty as the wrestling guys here at Branded and giving you the content that you want and the content you deserve.
Yeah, shout out to the guy on Reddit Squared Circle that said, "Don't post this ever again." Like, that was just so great. That was positive feedback, and I said, "Hey, Walsh, we got to run it back."
We really appreciate your
clamoring for content.
We really appreciate your support. Your shout out guy on Reddit. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, he rocks.
So after this, the hardcore street fight match that continues the WCW WWE feud, we have my probably, if not my all-time favorite match, easily top two.
Yep.
The TLC 2 between Edge and Christian, the Dudleys, and the Hardy Boys.
Yep. Great match.
What a fucking match. An all-time great. The first one, we'll go back here and we'll give you the history. We had the first ever tag team ladder match between Edge Christian and the Hardys for the services of Terry Runnels. Back in, what was that? No Mercy of 99, I think it was. So we had that one.
Weird.
Yeah, very weird. There was like a whole tournament for that too. That wasn't just like a one-off. There was like a whole tournament for the services of Terry Runnels, which lasted, I think, maybe a week after that. Like she went to the ring with the Hardys. Spoiler, they won that match.
Yeah.
And then there's like one time she was there and it went nowhere after that. So
second spoiler alert, not worth a whole tournament to get her services. Like if this was like, what's his name? Bobby Heenan. Oh, you could stretch that. You could do a whole pay-per-view based around that tournament that you're going to win his privileges as a manager. Miss Elizabeth. Right. Sensational Theory. All of those worth a tournament. Terry Reynolds? No.
Terry did nothing. Literally nothing to help.
No.
And then we had WrestleMania 2000. We had the triple threat ladder match.
Yep.
Just ladders. That actually turned into pretty much a TLC match.
I mean, it's basically TLC without the TLC. Right. I like TLC is now. It's TLC without actually being TLC.
And then we had the original TLC at SummerSlam of 01. Or
yeah, it was 2000.
SummerSlam 2000, yes.
Yep.
Which has now led us to this one, TLC 2, the best one. Could go down as I would say of all time, probably a top, like I said, it's in my top 2. I would say it's definitely a top 5 match of all time.
Yeah, right up there in my top 5 as well.
I mean, it felt longer than it was. Don't get me wrong, it wasn't a short match, 15 minutes, a little over 15 minutes. The action was incredible. The spots that were taken, ridiculous.
Yeah.
The one image I'll never forget is Jeff Hardy hanging from the belts and a spear by Edge off the ladder.
Which probably is the worst bump he took in the match. I believe he did a swanton bomb onto Rhino and Christian, and he just completely biffed it.
Mm-hmm.
Just fell right on his ass.
Like, there's a reason that the Hardy Boys' bodies are destroyed, and it goes back to these matches. Like, they took crazy bumps. Jeff Hardy had that swanton bomb where he only went through the one table, I think, right?
Yeah, he went through, he caught the table, like, he jumped too far out instead of, like, just down. He could just fell down.
Yeah.
He jumped too far out, busted his ass pretty good.
And that was before the spear, too. So he did that and then got speared as he was hanging in the air.
Can you imagine when that adrenaline wears off, how shitty you feel, like, in the locker room? Like, I would probably be crying.
Yeah. And, like, 6-year-old me watching this was amazed. 25-year-old me now is even still amazed by how great this match was. And now even the backstory with these guys, like, these guys were all best friends outside of the ring.
Which I think makes it, like, if you even heard Kevin Owens talk about with Sami Zayn, he's like, I know I can beat the shit out of him because he's my best friend, and we kind of, that's our relationship. Like, we can, like, there's that chemistry there, which it really shows that they beat the fuck out of each other in this TLC match because they were all best friends.
Yes. And we had a lot of outside involvement as all 3 teams had a third member, essentially. You had Spike Dudley, who he gets destroyed. Every time he's involved with anything, he's just getting killed. Like, I can't believe the amount of stuff that this is the one he goes through the table to the outside, right?
The Bulldog, he goes to Bulldog. I forget who, but he goes through the table.
So he gets involved. He's only in there for about 12 seconds before he's donezo. Through the table, dead for the rest of the match. Lita comes out. She gets involved, pretty much hits a Hurricane Rana, and then
rips her top off for no reason.
Top off, yeah.
For no reason other than to just horn up all the fans. At
exactly.
The Astrodome.
And the third and final guy that gets involved, Rhino, gored her. So then that's Lita's taken out. And Rhino's pretty much the only one that survives. He gets taken out a little bit by Jeff Hardy and that Swanton Bomb we talked about. But then he's the reason that Edge and Christian win the match pretty much. He puts Christian on his shoulders.
Which, you know what's so funny about that is I mean, I'd love going back to the Raw before Mania. So is everyone. I did my homework here. But Kurt Angle is in a segment there where he taps out to the crossface from Benoit, and Edge and Christian are his best friends at the time. And they're like, hey, we brought in a fourth member here, and he's going to just be like the greatest addition to us. And it's fucking Rhino.
Yeah.
He's like, big fan of your work, Kurt. And then he just walks off, and that's how they introduce him as being the new guy in the stable.
Yeah, a very interesting ad. I mean, it worked.
Yeah,
it really worked. They made it work as best they could. And yeah, he helped Edge and Christian win the titles. Right before they actually win the titles, you have another crazy spot with Bubba Dudley and Matt Hardy climbing to the top of the ladder. And is it Rhino or who pushes the ladder off?
I think it was Rhino. I'm not 100%.
Yeah, I'm not 100%. As bad as it is, I literally just watched it, but I'm pretty sure it is Rhino pushes the ladder, and they go through 4 tables. Which I don't know how they survived that one. I think Matt Hardy took the worst of that because he nearly missed all the tables completely.
Which is it's a death sentence. He doesn't think about missing the. I mean, he doesn't really, but he's just got bad luck with it.
Yes. So that happens. They go through 4 tables. They're out for the match. Carnage everywhere. Tables everywhere, ladders everywhere, chairs everywhere. And yeah, Edge and Christian pick up the win, go 2-0 in TLC matches. What did you think about that? Like, so I was always a Hardy Boy fan more than I was Edge and Christian. Like, they were my tag team. I liked Edge and Christian.
Yeah.
I was always a Hardy Boy fan more. So 6-year-old me was rooting for the Hardy Boys.
As was 8-year-old Chavy.
And now going back at it, I'm like, watching it now, I'm like, why did they have Edge and Christian win both of them? And like, they not only had them win both of them, they also had the Dudleys go in as the champions both times.
I didn't know the Dudleys went in as champions both times, but I think they were just trying to really show that, hey, the smartest team is going to win these matches, not just who's going to put their bodies on the line and just go for broke, which is what the Hardys did.
Yeah.
I think and from like an actual breakdown of behind the scenes, I think the Hardys were always better chasing the titles for the tag titles back in the day, because you're like, man, we know they're going to get it, and when they do, it's going to be sweet. Yeah. So like, I get that. I don't remember if the Dudleys were working as heels or faces at the time, but they were I mean, it's really a coin toss of a match. Like, yeah, I guess you could put on Edge and Christian twice, and it wouldn't really make a difference. But you could also give it to the Dudleys or the Hardys. At least go 1-1.
Yeah, not that I think they got it wrong, because they obviously it worked. I mean, those teams. That wasn't the last time these teams fought.
No.
But to me, I was like, I mean, I could have seen, like, I get like building up, like, oh yeah, Edge and Christian are undefeated in TLC matches. I get that, completely understandable. But yeah, I kind of think I would have liked to have seen one of the other teams win. Like, I get Edge and Christian won, but I would have been even okay with the Dudleys winning one. I just don't think you should have given one team both wins.
That's fair. I mean, it's fair. I mean, it's definitely, like I said, there's no really wrong way to book that match. He really could put anyone with the titles at the end. But yeah, it is what it is. You know, we can't go back and change it, but we can just say, hey, this is maybe how we would have done it if we had the reigns, so to speak, the Roman reigns.
Absolutely. Yeah, if you have not watched that match, go watch it. Regardless of how you got into wrestling, when you got into wrestling, I will recommend that match to anyone that is just likes entertainment, high quality entertainment, because it is from start to finish. You are on the edge of your seat.
Yeah, it's a car crash the whole way through in the best way possible.
Could have easily been the main event of the show. Wasn't.
Yeah.
But match number 9. And then we go from, we're up here, which I don't see how high this is where we're at. Like the excitement level, entertainment level, all the way to the top of the charts. We're on a roll here. And then we get the gimmick battle royal of just legends.
Kind of cool to see it. Again, it's one of those cool down matches where it's like we're just bringing the fans down a little so we can just bring them right back up for the next match. Which this was won by the Iron Sheik, which one of the best follows on Twitter.
Yes, he is. He is actually super entertaining, and I always have to like double check that it's actually him when I see some of this stuff. I'm like, "There's no way, right?" And then I see him,
it could be like the faux Bo Pelini account, like where you just like, damn, like I could. It's so absurd that it has to be a parody account, but yeah, it's not. He's got the blue check mark and everything. Hilarious follow.
Yeah, so give him a follow. A couple of the other guys, and I don't want to talk too much about this match because, like we said, it was a cool down match to get the pay per view. You know, settle down, go get some snacks real quick, settle in for these next two big ones coming up. We had the Bushwhackers,
cool guys.
Doink the Clown, the Gobbledygooker, Jim Cornette, Sergeant Slaughter, a couple other names. I don't feel like going through the whole thing.
No.
The Iron Sheik won. He won by eliminating Hillbilly Jim.
He won in 3 minutes in a 15-man battle royal.
It was a bunch of old guys getting in there and just trying to get over the top rope as quickly as possible.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of my alumni game that I play for soccer. It's just me going out there to relive the glory days and then just 2 minutes in being like, I'm so out of shape.
Those guys, there's zero doubt in my mind. Every one of those guys was piss drunk.
Oh, yeah. I mean, no doubt. Michael Hayes, he was like notorious for just getting hammered with Fabulous Freebirds. He probably had all Jack Daniels as his blood by that point. His BAC was just Jack Daniels as my entire bloodstream. Like, it's crazy. And they had Brother Love Wrestling, who was a manager. They had Jim Cornette Wrestling, who's also a manager. I don't get it. That's a waste of a spot. But I loved on the Raw before Mania that Heyman just buried the piss out of this match before when they advertised. He's just like, this match is gonna fucking suck. Just FYI, don't tune into it.
We haven't even talked about that at all. Paul Heyman on commentary.
Yeah, he was. I don't know. I think King was gone because they fucked over his wife, the cat, at the time.
Yeah,
and so Heyman was there, and Heyman was a welcome change.
Very welcome. He was great, and like going back and hearing him on commentary. The dude just gets it. He's pure entertainment, regardless of what he does.
Yeah,
I'm a Paul Heyman guy.
Same. I love Paul Heyman. It's such a cool contrast to see him just be a foil to JR and just straight up play the bad guy compared to Jerry the King Lawler, who's just horny.
Yes,
doesn't really fall on like either side of evil. Yeah, he just wants to see puppies. So it was a good change.
Yeah, Paul Heyman guys here, and if I ever get involved in wrestling, which I mean at this point at 25, I'm 25. I don't know that I will live out that dream. But who knows?
DDP got in at like 32, 34, and he had a career.
So never say never. But if I get involved, I want Paul Heyman as my mouthpiece.
I want
if we go tag team, Paul Heyman's got to be our guy.
Yeah, I don't even know what would our. I mean, I'm sure our tag team would have to have some sort of tie-in to the branded name. I mean, just the Branders. Why would it be the Branders?
We're the Branders.
Hashtag get branded.
And our finisher will brand everybody. That'll be our. The NWO had the spray paint. We'll do the brand after we ambush everybody.
What if our finisher's name is the click off?
Yes.
Or the clickbait. The clickbait. There we go. The clickbait is our finishing move.
We've got it. We're running. All right. CEO Joe, we need you to send us down to the Performance Center.
Yeah. First class, obvious.
So after the gimmick battle royal, settle in because we got two main events.
Yep.
2 main events. We have the first one, which was not a big deal at the time. The streak of the Undertaker on the line against Triple H, which, could have easily been the main event. A singles match that kind of turned into like a Falls Count Anywhere type thing. They kind of...
Yeah, you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, like I think the referee got knocked down pretty early, and they end up fighting into the crowd, and they go on top of this, just of course, because why not at WrestleMania? There's just a platform that's just set up for something.
Yeah, I mean, like OSHA's there to check it out for work-related hazards. I mean, they would have shut the show down quicker than Ray could get over the cables.
So they had that, and of course, somebody was going off of it, and the Undertaker chokeslams Triple H off the platform, which the only thing I didn't like about it, like it was a cool spot.
Yeah,
like they didn't even try and play it off. Like there was clearly just like mats down there. Like it was no like, oh my God, that should have actually really hurt him. No, he fell into fluff.
Which, again, we're not saying chokeslam him onto concrete. We're just saying hide it a little better.
Right. Like put like something over that even looks like it'll be painful.
Thumbtacks.
Yeah.
A pool of thumbtacks over the mat.
Or even just a table. Like a table would have been fine there.
Yeah, that's the thing. People always think the tables look brutal. It goes back to like being the barbed wire bat. It's safe. It actually breaks their fall.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, when they go through 6 tables, it's probably the safest thing for them than just falling straight onto a mat.
Yes, agreed. And it goes back to our all-out review. If Matt Hardy would have went through 3 tables, or if there were 3 tables set up there, we wouldn't have talked about Matt Hardy getting a concussion.
And getting his eggs scrambled. Like, yeah, that's a fucking guarantee. I don't even remember. Were they really hyping up the streak around the time?
It was one of those things they mentioned it. Like, it wasn't like to what it got to.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like the streak really didn't get talked about much until like.
Well, Mark Henry was supposed to break it, so I think like mid 2000s was when they really started to really hammer it.
That buried a live match, right? Their casket match, whatever it was with Mark Henry. So that was probably like,
06 or 06 or 07.
Is it WrestleMania 21? Maybe.
No, WrestleMania 21 was him and Orton, I believe.
Okay, right. So
no,
22 probably.
22, yeah, it would have been the next year they did that match.
All right, so 07, which makes sense because Undertaker was old there. Not that he was old, but he was. You never knew when it was going to be the end of him.
Sure, that wasn't a spring chicken.
Right. So he continued his streak, which would go on for a little while longer, defeating Triple H, and it was just a singles match. Nice little build up to the feud. You can throw 2 of the top guys into a match, and honestly, you really didn't have to build it all that much. It was just 2 guys that are trying to fight for their spot in the conversation of being a champion, and they couldn't get into the main event. So they got to fight each other. Only makes sense.
Yeah, and I think this was part of the network edit. But didn't they put in his O2 theme song where it's like, you've done it now? Because they couldn't use... Was he using Rolling at the time by Limp Bizkit? Yeah. I
think he was, yeah.
Which is
because Limp Bizkit had the other song on the show.
Oh, My Way.
Yeah.
Which fucking... I almost forgot about that until you just brought up. Absolutely made... Yeah, the promos with that song playing in the background were fucking fire. I love it.
Incredible.
Yeah.
If you weren't hyped for The Rock versus Austin after watching the videos with My Way playing in the background, you just don't have a pulse.
Oh, no, you don't. You're a confirmed dead man like The Undertaker.
Yes.
But no, if you watch that one and then you watch the Invasion one, which we'll talk about when we get there, with the promo with Puddle of Mud's Control playing, also a banger.
Even going a little bit further here in 2001, SummerSlam with Bodies.
Oh, that's another good. I mean,
Drowning Pool. Like that's what I miss. Like they used to have so many good like songs that to go with these like feuds or even the pay-per-views in general. Now, like you don't get that.
Yeah, no, Trust Tree here, 2016 when they used My House by Flow Rider for WrestleMania. I liked it.
I agree. No, that was a good one.
Yeah, I was running the branded Trust Tree here. I like that.
I have liked the theme songs for WrestleManias. Like they've done good with that, but like I just don't like build up your other pay-per-views too. Or like don't do as many of them. That's what I have to say about. Like either build them up to make me care about them, or just don't do as many.
Oh yeah. That's why when I loved the brand split back in 2016 when they did it was pay-per-views every other month for the brand.
Yeah. That was perfect.
And yeah, because then you can kind of get these super shows built in between where it's like, okay, well, it's June. We're SmackDown. We don't have a pay-per-view till July, but we have to blow off this feud so we can build to that pay-per-view. So let's just do a Super Tuesday where we have a supersized SmackDown where we're ending feuds, possible title change, all that stuff. I miss that. 2016 SmackDown, probably the last time I was genuinely invested in WWE. Like where I was watching every week, couldn't miss it.
Yeah, like give me a reason to tune in every week. Not like, oh, well, on this Monday night on Raw, we have the match that we've shown 6 times over the last 2 weeks. And nothing really is going to happen. But yeah, watch the pay-per-view.
Yeah, watch hashtag WWE Universe presents hashtag WWE SummerSlam hashtag Party of the Summer hashtag Get Branded. Yeah, it's dumb now. But the new metal is not really a thing where we can get those types of.
True. NXT has done a good job of it though. The NXT has they've had some hits as the takeover show songs, and it's been more an alternative vibe,
which I think is the best way to go. Depending on the card too. Yeah. I guess you can't just put My Way over Ivory versus China, and that's your promo for that, because that just doesn't have that proper build. It wasn't the type of match they were going for. But those blow-off feuds, you need the type of music. You don't need some generic elevator music shit. You need some banger, heavy metal, balls to the wall type of thing.
Agreed. And with My Way, I wish if we could some way incorporate that video into right now as we head to the main event. We made it, people. The last match of the night, Rock Austin 2 at Wrestlemania.
Yep. Oh, you throw it up there? We throwing it up? Are we too sweetened?
Too sweetened.
Before we get into that, and this is kind of this is a funny story. So I have an All Elite Wrestling shirt.
Okay.
And I had it in my Jeep the one day, and I was going to the grocery store, and I didn't have a mask. I was like, shit, well, I got to wear a mask in here. I'm not one of those COVID truthers. I'm not an asshole. So I had thrown on my AEW shirt. I threw it over my head, and then I just pulled it up to cover it to here, but you can still see the AEW kind of hanging right here. And as I'm checking out, the grocery bag guy is just like, hey, awesome mask. And I was like, it's an Elite, man. I didn't say that part, but I said it in my head, and I was just like, thank you. It's just cool to know that there's wrestling nerds out there in the wild that will just, and that's happened to me at airports. I've worn my Young Buck shirt to the airport. Now, pre-COVID, I was two-sweeting people when they come up to me.
It's the way to do it, man. I don't really have many wrestling shirts. I have a Baylor Club one. It's probably and Undisputed. I'm a big Undisputed Era guy.
I love them. Yeah.
Can't wait for them to get a legitimate run on the main roster. But at the same time,
if they get one, that's a big if.
I don't know that's going to happen before they all decide to leave.
I'm not going to hold my breath. No, I have so many wrestling shirts. It's ridiculous. I have a couple WWE from back when I was really into it, 2016. I got Enzo and Cass. I got Sami Zayn, who were two of my favorite acts at the time. I still love Sami Zayn. I don't see much work he does now, but I just loved his whole babyface, ska music entrance. It would get me hyped. And then I got a
Enzo and Cass guy too.
Yeah, I loved them.
The intro.
Hilarious.
Awesome.
I had them. But now it's mostly indie shirts I have, or New Japan or AEW. I do have a couple old school WWE shirts I bought, and I want to get more, but they all come in black, most of these shirts, and it's not a good color. It just shows all my cat I have here, that just the hair just shows up on there. My white orange Cass t-shirt doesn't show up as much. If they made more white, gray, green, red, any other color, I could wear more of these shirts, but I can't wear a black shirt all the time. I get pussy hair all over it.
Yeah, I hear you. That's I have a Bullet Club shirt. And,
ooh, is it normal Bullet Club, or which one is it? Okay,
the New Japan one. It's it's kind of probably 4 or 5 years old at this point. It's pretty not that's old, but I still have it. Yeah. But yeah, I have my dog, and his hair just shows up everywhere, and I'm like, I can't. I'll wear this to bed, and when I watch a show.
It's basically just a nighttime shirt at this point.
Exactly,
which is fine.
Yeah, I don't mind it. So yeah, Rock Austin 2 for the WWF Championship, which we find out at the start of the match is now no DQ. So something fishy is going to happen. It wasn't supposed to be a no DQ match. It was not announced before. It was announced right before the match starts. So you're like, all right, something's going to happen here. Somebody might get involved. What's going to happen?
I have an inclination that someone will get involved now that there's no disqualification.
That's how it works. And once the no DQ hits, it's they're literally, there's no rules. Anything goes.
Can I say, I love the fact that they just made it no DQ and basically advertised there was going to be interference, because I hate the fact that there's just a gust of wind, the ref goes down for 5 minutes and they can just do whatever they want. Yeah. The refs have vertigo or something where they just fall down the gust of a slight wind. And so I like this. I like the fact they went no DQ. Just said, hey, we're doing something fishy here. Deal with it.
And good match. I don't want to say it was entertaining. Long too, 28 minutes, which is well deserved for the main event of WrestleMania. A lot had to happen. These two, best of our lifetime.
Oh yeah, for sure. In our lifetime, we probably won't see any two superstars that got as popular as they did. I'm sure people throw on Hulk Hogan.
He's not. I don't consider him our time. Like, there's
okay, so we'll go. Okay, so yeah, I'd say definitely then.
Like,
best of top of our lifetime.
We all know Hulk Hogan was great. We're not going to deny that, but we didn't grow up watching him. Yeah, he was around, but we didn't see the Hulk Hogan that the older hardcore wrestling fans die on a hill for.
Yeah, I think I started really watching weekly probably in 2000. Because, I would watch pay-per-views here and there that my uncle would give me on VHS when I was younger. Mm-hmm. But at that point, I think he was just returning to WCW as the regular Hogan. Like, he was just not NWO Hogan. So at that point, we're like, wow, who's this old guy that's coming out in, like, yellow underwear? It looks like he pissed himself.
Right.
Like, we don't know who he is. But Rock and Austin are hit their peaks at that point, and were popular across every demo, I think, way more than Hulk was ever.
I agree. And they put on great matches. Great promos. And I think it kind of goes back to the whole, like, it didn't matter who won or lost. They were still the same the following week or the next night, whatever it was.
Holy shit. This whole match, like you said, 28 minutes, just great storytelling, great entertainment. And we got a infamous double turn.
Yes.
That not people saw coming.
No, not many people saw coming. And we'll get to it eventually, but if you're watching this, listening to this, whatever, it didn't go the way that it should have went.
No.
The idea was great, very great, and like people couldn't boo Stone Cold. That's pretty much what it got to. Like, people could not get behind not liking Stone Cold. He's too likable of a character. And it sucked because it could have gone so much better. But what we're going to get into in these next couple episodes with the invasion angle and all that, we'll talk about how better that could have been. But back to the main topic here. Main event WrestleMania, a great match, great storytelling, like we said. The classic double turn that will go down in history. Good, bad, whatever you want to consider it. But no one really saw it coming. Like you said, there wasn't dirt sheets. There wasn't spoilers out there like there are nowadays where you're like, oh, well, yeah, we kind of saw that coming from a mile away. This was Stone Cold going with Vince McMahon.
Crazy.
That doesn't happen.
He had a gun to his head like 2 years ago before this, and now all of a sudden they have a working relationship where they're just they were like, yeah, let's work together.
Yeah, just out of nowhere.
Yeah, I still don't know how I feel about it to this day. Like you said, we're gonna touch on it with the invasion angle later, but it was just too much. I don't want to sound like I'm complaining as a wrestling fan, because I definitely do appreciate the effort. But that was just one of those things where it's like, you don't want Austin to become stale, but at the same time, you don't have to have him work with Vince. Yeah,
it was just not that there was no need for it. Like, I got the idea behind it. I understand where they were trying to go with it.
Yeah.
It didn't work. As simple as that. It did not work. And it definitely didn't get the reaction, I think, that they expected at WrestleMania either, which just got it off to a bad start.
Which, I'll be honest, I was expecting Hulk Hogan joining the NWO type of reaction, just trash being thrown in the ring, because that ended the pay-per-view. That ended the fucking pay-per-view of WrestleMania, was Vince and Stone Cold Steve Austin aligning. They should not have left the arena alive that night. Based on how that's how they thought it was going to go. They thought they were going to get murdered on the way out.
It ended with McMahon and Austin holding up the title and drinking a beer together. We know how that usually ends. That ends with Stone Cold stunning him, and that's it. And then everyone pops again because Austin turns his back on the boss. But it didn't happen here. And I think because they did it so much, we're like, yeah, they'd also tease it a bunch where, like, Vince inadvertently almost helps Austin.
Yeah.
And then Austin's like acts like he's with him and then gives him a stunner. So they almost kind of overplayed that aspect of it, and that's kind of, I think, part of the reason why the turn didn't go as well as they had hoped.
No, it was it's just a lot of left field. It doesn't make any sense. I wish I could love it. Wish I could have had that reaction to it that they wanted, but it's just hard.
Definitely, it was definitely hard. Great match though. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't really have anything else about the main event. Overall, like we already said before, easily my favorite pay-per-view, if not my top 3 of all time. With, I would say, probably 2 of my top 15 matches of all time. Because I don't want to say The Rock versus Austin is top 10 in my eyes, but the TLC match is definitely in my top 3 at least.
Which we will get that full list down the road. And I think we're at that point where we have to wrap things up because I checked my Twitter here, and your co-host of your other podcast, great plug by the way for another great podcast, is your Ginger Thread podcast, which you co-host with Kelsey.
Yes,
she's actually waiting for you.
Yes, we had Ginger Thread has officially gone to 2 episodes a week starting tomorrow. Well, when this is coming out, you're dropping this Monday, right?
I'm dropping this to Monday morning.
So yeah, Ginger Thread is officially going to be 2 episodes a week as long as we have an interview. So the interview episode is going to come out Mondays, and then our regular episode is going to come out Thursday. So we got to do a little like 10-minute, plug for tomorrow's episode. So I got to get that out, get that to Eddie. But yeah, I mean, this was a good episode. I mean, we're an hour and a half here.
Yeah, and I maintained sobriety for this, so I wasn't rambling too much because we hit 2 hours on our all-out recap, and I have to think drinking a couple of Coors Banquets made me a little bit more talkative and not as much substance to some of those words. But yeah, it's always great talking wrestling. Like I think we both said before, we don't really have the friend groups where we can go this in depth with things as we want to. So it's cool to just release it on a podcast format and show people, hey, there are wrestling nerds out there that are just as big of nerds as you, if not bigger. And we're here to entertain you for what we just did 90 minutes. That's like a Iron Man match and a half.
We just gave you a pay-per-view. You're welcome.
6-star podcast right here. That was a 6-star easily. Meltzer's going to rate that. If he unblocks me from Twitter, he will give this podcast 6 stars.
Oh man, you got blocked by him? Oh boy.
Yeah, I made a joke about a UFC card getting bumped because of COVID, and he blocked me. It wasn't even really like something towards him. It was just more like making fun of the situation, and I got blocked. Sucks.
Yeah, hate to see it.
Yeah, I'm just gonna follow him on the Walsh and Chavy's playground account and just see all his shit still from there. And he doesn't know I got accounts on accounts I can follow him through.
Chavy's got burners for days.
So I do. I really do. I mean, I don't use them for anything, but I do have them. They're in my arsenal just in case. So you see the bottom here. Follow us on Twitter, Keith Walsh, which I put the space in there. I don't know why I did that. That's Keith _Walsh 18.
Yep.
And then follow me, Agent Chavy Scarn, and I don't remember what the show's Twitter account is or like our little playground, but follow that too.
I think it's Nightcap Chavy.
Oh no, it's not. I changed it because we did that whole rebrand with like the playground.
Oh
It's gonna be Branded Play.
Branded Play. Follow that. Yeah. We'll be back Thursday, right? For the
Thursday will be the nightcap.
As long as nothing happens to either of us or Mike Golick, because he may be back for this week. We'll see what happens with that.
Sylvan's still dead though from coronavirus, unfortunately.
Yeah. All right, him. Hate to see it. He's missed. We will drink a beer for him on Thursday. We'll get
no doubt about that.
Recap going again.
Yeah, which I think we made it 45 minutes in now of a 95 to 100 minute long movie.
Couple more episodes and we'll get there.
We'll get there before the end of the year.
And we haven't decided on a schedule. Are we going to do this every Sunday now, or is this going to be how do we want to do this here? Let's give
it probably will be. If not, we'll find a day to drop it. One of the beauties of doing something like this, it's not time sensitive, so we can kind of release whenever and then just advertise it. So yeah, I'd say probably Sunday nights are probably the best night. We'll record this and hopefully drop Monday morning. But if we don't, if something comes up, life gets in the way. As a brander, we're busy people.
Exactly, and that's why you got to follow us on Twitter to stay up to date with everything.
Yeah, stay up to date on it. So that's a good spot to end. So why don't we just sign off now? We'll see you guys.
Yeah, we'll get out of here.